Thanks for posting your responses to week 3. We'll be moving on to week 4, and you'll be reading about modernism. When you are reading about modernism, we are doing poetry this week, so you will not be yet going into the short fiction. You'll be doing some reading of Ezra Pound, who is quite an interesting fellow, so I do encourage you to take a look at his biography. And then I would recommend that you go ahead and take a look at T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, which is the seminal piece of modern poetry. And I would recommend that you take a look at the footnotes because they're going to be very helpful in orienting you towards the understanding of the work. In addition, the midterm will be opening up on the 20th. It will be open and proctored from June 20th through July 3rd at midnight. So this will not be opened up through the Friday. Instead, it'll be closing on Thursday because of the holiday. If you do have any questions, please feel free to post in week 6 under the discussion area, and there's also a study guide there. Just to kind of give you an overview of your readings, I think that for the most part you guys did a good job of engaging the material. To begin, I would like to kind of start with Chandra. I think, Chandra, your post is good, however you do need to do a bit more development. I would strongly recommend that you make sure that you have a bit of evidence and analysis to support your observations. In fact, as far as kind of that support and that kind of exploration, I think Jessica did a good job of summation, but she too does need a bit more evidence in her posting. Jason had a good structure, and he really did kind of highlight the idea that the reading of W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and Stephen Crane's The Open Boat and Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper really did show the importance of history to him. Many of you, like Juan and Vance, mentioned that The Open Boat by Stephen Crane was really a great story and it sucked you in. That it really did kind of highlight one of the tenets of naturalism, which is pessimistic in some ways, but it does focus on the idea that environment will control all of the aspects of the characters and the plot. Carrie pulled those kind of ideas into her reading of Gilman's, and she pulled in the notions of biography. Jeremy, like most of you, did mention that he enjoyed reading and that it was a good reading, and he also presented a bit of naturalism. Jennifer pulled in and read Stephen Crane. She really did highlight the notion that naturalism focuses on nature overlooking mankind. Camellia mentioned that reading Washington's Up from Slavery really did make her want to read more, not just the selection we read in the book. Russell had a great focus on The Open Boat and the idea that there was a limited outlook. This notion that life is rough with naturalism was something that Ashlyn focused on in specifics with the symbolism in the story. Miranda mentioned one of the key tenets of naturalism, which is nature versus man. Forrest focused on the idea of the common theme of naturalism, this idea of indifference and the cruelty of nature. You can see that in Gilman, and you can also, of course, see that in Stephen Crane. Philip, I absolutely loved your reading of Washington, and I encourage everyone to take a look at it. Jonathan, thanks for your reading of Crane. However, this wasn't World War II. This was actually in the 1890s, so it's post-Civil War. However, you can kind of see it's a similar ethos in that. John, you had an excellent reading and discussion of naturalism, and you really did focus on this idea of man responding to nature. Edmund, I really enjoyed the focus on the idea of struggle in your work. And of course, Lindsay, your unpacking of why I wrote The Yellow Wallpaper was spectacular. Megan, you had a great reading of The Yellow Wallpaper, and I like your interpretation of naturalism. Kevin, you did a great job of presenting the opposing views of Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, who were polar opposites. Du Bois really believed in the talented 10th. He was actually one of the first, if not the first, PhDs, African-American PhDs in the country. He was the first from Harvard. And his idea was that there's a talented 10th and they need to get the education, where Washington saw everyone needing to not just get education but to learn a trade. Sarah, you did a great job of reading The Open Boat and supporting the lesson, the idea that the environment controls all. Melvin, nice exploration of Du Bois, specifically in the veil and his use of the veil symbolism. Jordan, great focus on situational irony in The Yellow Wallpaper. think a lot of people read naturalism and they don't see that there is irony and there's symbolism and there's depths, and I like that you did that. Mark, you had a great reading of The Yellow Wallpaper, and really that focus on that depression and that sense of hopelessness really did capture what naturalism is about. Jason, great exploration of the debate between Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois. Ryan, I really liked your reading of The Open Boat and how you saw it as attacking romanticism and also exploring man's place in the universe, which in naturalism is a very tenuous one at that. Charlene, I like that you mentioned the notion of the color line as being called out as the problem of the 20th century. And then, of course, your question, which we all should be doing when we're reading literature, is what is the problem of the 21st? Sherry, good reading of The Yellow Wallpaper, and of course this you really highlighted the descriptive quality, which does call back to realism but does still pull in the notion of naturalism. And Christopher, I like that you focus on this idea that it's realistic but it's still fiction, that kind of bind between the fiction and nonfiction. And then of course Joseph, I thought you did a great job of reading Up from Slavery, and that you really did mention that people were shaped by this. Now, in light of the midterm, you will see that you do have some study guides. That's something you can use. It's open book, open note. You just can't access the computer or anything on the internet. It's 2 hours. You have plenty of time to work and to write. I strongly encourage you to contact me if you have any questions, concerns, things along those lines. I'm always happy to help. I look forward to seeing your week 4 posts and your interpretation of poetry. If you do have any questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out with me. Thank you.